Caput 1. Diath-Stingle, December the 18th, 1066, St. Desideratus' Day. The recently appointed Abbot Athan sat in his recently appropriated study and considered the parchment in front of him with care. Being made abbot had its advantages. Having to deal with parchment was not one of them. The messenger who had delivered it could not wait to get away, and so had given no hint of its contents, if he even knew. Those contents presented Athan with a puzzle, and he was not comfortable with puzzles that could not be beaten into surrender. He held the sheet in front of him and considered the words laid out in a neat hand, as well as the large and impressive wax seal affixed to the bottom. This was a message of considerable importance, and he had to deal with it carefully. He nodded gently to himself as he thought through the implications, the main one arising from the fact that no one ever sent messages to the monastery at Diath-Stingle. Well, they did, but they'd never been caught. Lifting the document to his face, he studied the seal that said this was a missive from high in the church hierarchy. Oval in shape, the wax had a clear image of a saint, sat upon a throne of some sort, the whole being surrounded by a border inscribed with Latin. He could tell it was a saint because the figure had a halo. What the Latin said, he had not a clue. He thought one of the letters might be an A. He knew A because of Athan. B had always seemed to be just one more of life's completely unnecessary luxuries. He tried turning the whole thing over so that the wax seal was at the top, but still the irritating squiggles and splashes of ink made absolutely no sense to him. His normal recourse in a situation like this was to summon Brother Hermitage, who could read all of the letters in Latin and English, but there was no way he was going to let that irritation of a monk get the better of his abbot. He scoured his head for anyone else in the place who could read. There was the awful weaver friend of Hermitage, but he was just as bad. Perhaps Brother Bolden could be persuaded to cooperate for once. He knew that the price to pay would be high, and probably sinful if Bolden's preoccupations were the same as usual. Still, anything was better than letting Hermitage in on a confidence. With any luck, the content of the message would be something horrible. Then he would send for Brother Hermitage. He nodded once more as his face moved to that disturbing arrangement he called a smile. He raised his toes to the fire and rang his bell.
Ah, Brother Mark, find Brother Bolden and send him to me.
Bolden? Brother Bolden? Our Brother Bolden? Are you sure?
Just do it.
If you say so. It's a bit cold out there, though.
Oh dear.
The monastery at Diath-Stingle did not generally take winter well. No monastery was supposed to be comfortable, but even in the glorious summer this place had been unpleasant. By autumn it had turned grim and was grumbling loud forebodings of worse to come. The very stones seemed bent upon helping their inhabitants find new depths of suffering from which to think longingly of being anywhere else at all. It had a reputation for being colder on the inside than it was on the outside. In times of blazing heat this could be a comfort, except, of course, the smell never went away. When the land around froze deep and dangerous, the air inside Diath-Stingle could actually be seen. Breathing out only added to the fog. The mystery of why an establishment that comprised mainly of open space could be colder than the open space on the other side of a wall was seldom considered. The monks had other things to worry about. The reputation of Diath-Stingle was broad and all-encompassing. It encompassed things most people wouldn't talk about, or, if they did, it would be in hushed whispers around the tavern fire. The building itself was bad enough, even though it sat in the most beauteous part of the North Lincoln countryside, not far from the swirling brown waters of the Humber. It sat as an animal that has died of something contagious sits in the middle of the village street. Any building might be considered brooding, usually dark places that blanketed joy with their drear presence. Diath-Stingle was one of those, but no one wanted to speculate what it was brooding about. It had been thrown up, in all senses of the expression, by a son whose only inheritance had been a decrepit stone quarry. He had made the best he could of his stock, and anything left over had been used for the monastery. His father may have left a bequest that a religious house be built on the site, but he hadn't specified how well. When established constructions, particularly old Roman ones, fell into disrepair, the local folk would gather the fallen stones for their own homes. Diath-Stingle didn't fall into disrepair, it jumped. Local folk knew far better than to use material cast off by that place. As the saying in those parts went, the stones of Diath-Stingle, for when the worst isn't quite bad enough.